Welcome back, friends. I'm Annabelle, and I'm here to read. Every week, first we read a piece of classic literature together, and then we talk about it. If you would like to follow along, down in the video description box, along with other source link and link to the author's biography, there is a free ebook. As always, content warnings are down below, but this one has kind of a big one, and I'll let Jonah Hill tell you what it is.
I won't say it for little baby ears over there, but it rhymes with shmushmorshin.
And down there's also a link to subscribe, just in case you like classic literature, or whatever. This week, we are reading Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. The hills across the valley of the Ebro were long and white. On this side, there was no shade and no trees, and the station was between two lines of rails in the sun. Close against the side of the station there was the warm shadow of the building and a curtain, made of strings of bamboo beads, hung across the open door into the bar to keep out flies. The American and the girl with him sat at a table in the shade outside the building. It was very hot, and the express from Barcelona would come in 40 minutes. It stopped at this junction for 2 minutes and went on to Madrid. "What should we drink?" the girl asked. She had taken off her hat and put it on the table. "It's pretty hot," the man said. "Let's drink beer." "Dos cervezas," the man said into the curtain. "Big ones?" a woman asked from the doorway. "Yes, 2 big ones." The woman brought 2 glasses of beer and 2 felt pads. She put the felt pads and the beer glasses on the table and looked at the man and the girl. The girl was looking off at the line of hills. They were white in the sun, and the country was brown and dry. "They look like white elephants," she said. "I've never seen one." The man drank his beer. "No, you wouldn't have." "I might have," the man said. "Just because you say I wouldn't have doesn't prove anything." The girl looked at the bead curtain. "They've painted something on it," she said. "What does it say?" "Annie del Toro. It's a drink." Could we try it?" The man called, "Listen," through the curtain. The woman came out from the bar. "4 reales?" "We want 2 anise del Toro." "With water." "Do you want it with water?" "I don't know," the girl said. Is it good with water?" "It's all right." "You want them with water?" asked the woman. "Yes, with water." "It tastes like licorice," the girl said, and put the glass down. "That's the way with everything." "Yes," said the girl. "Everything tastes of licorice, especially all the things you waited so long for, like absinthe." "Oh, cut it out." "You started it," the girl said. "I was being amused. I was having a fine time." "Well, let's try and have a fine time." "All right. I was trying. I said the mountains looked like white elephants. Wasn't that bright?" "That was bright." "I wanted to try this new drink. That's all we do, isn't it? Look at things and try new drinks." "I guess so." The girl looked across at the hills. "They're lovely hills," she said. "They don't really look like white elephants. I just meant the coloring of their skin through the trees." "Should we have another drink?" "All right." The warm wind blew the bead curtain against the table. "The beer's nice and cool," the man said. "It's lovely," the girl said. It's really an awfully simple operation, Jig, the man said. It's not really an operation at all. The girl looked at the ground the table legs rested on. I know you wouldn't mind it, Jig. It's really not anything. It's just to let the air in. The girl did not say anything. I'll go with you, and I'll stay with you all the time. They just let the air in, and then it's all perfectly natural. Then what will we do afterward? We'll be fine afterward, just like we were before. What makes you think so? That's the only thing that bothers us. It's the only thing that's made us unhappy. The girl looked at the bead curtain, put her hand out, and took hold of 2 of the strings of beads. And then you think we'll be all right and be happy? I know we will. You don't have to be afraid. I've known lots of people that have done it. So have I, said the girl. And afterward they were all so happy. Well, the man said, if you don't want to, you don't have to. I wouldn't have you do it if you didn't want to, but I know it's perfectly simple. And you really want to? I think it's the best thing to do, but I don't want you to do it if you don't really want to. And if I do it, you'll be happy and things will be like they were and you'll love me? I love you now. You know I love you. I know, but if I do it, then it will be nice again if I say things are like white elephants and you'll like it. I'll love it. I love it now, but I just can't think about it. You know how I get when I worry. If I do it, you won't ever worry. I won't worry about that because it's perfectly simple. Then I'll do it. Because I don't care about me. What do you mean? I don't care about me. Well, I care about you. Oh yes, but I don't care about me, and I'll do it, and then everything will be fine. I don't want you to do it if you feel that way. The girl stood up and walked to the end of the station. Across on the other side were fields of grain and trees along the banks of the Ebro. Far away beyond the river were mountains. The shadow of a cloud moved across the field of grain, and she saw the river through the trees. And we could have all this, she said. And we could have everything, and every day we make it more impossible. What did you say? I said we could have everything. We can have everything. No, we can't. We can have the whole world. No, we can't. We can go everywhere. No, we can't. It isn't ours anymore. It's ours. No, it isn't. And once they take it away, you'd never get it back. But they haven't taken it away. We'll wait and see. Come on back in the shade, he said. You mustn't feel that way. I don't feel any way, the girl said. I just know things. I don't want you to do anything you don't want to do, nor that it isn't good for me, she said. I know. Could we have another beer? All right, but you've got to realize. I realize, the girl said. Can't we maybe stop talking? They sat down at the table, and the girl looked across at the hills on the dry side of the valley, and the man looked at her and at the table. You've got to realize, he said, that I don't want you to do it if you don't want to. I'm perfectly willing to go through with it if it means anything to you. Doesn't it mean anything to you? We could get along. Of course it does, but I don't want anybody but you. I don't want anyone else, and I know it's perfectly simple. Yes, you know it's perfectly simple. It's all right for you to say that, but I do know it. Would you do something for me now? I'd do anything for you. Would you please, 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 please stop talking? He did not say anything, but looked at the bags against the wall of the station. There were labels on them from all the hotels where they had spent nights. But I don't want you to, he said. I don't care anything about it. I'll scream, the girl said. The woman came out through the curtains with 2 glasses of beer and put them down on the damp felt pads. The train comes in 5 minutes, she said. What did she say? Asked the girl. That the train is coming in 5 minutes. The girl smiled brightly at the woman to thank her. I'd better take the bags over to the other side of the station, the man said. She smiled at him. All right. Then come back and we'll finish the beer. He picked up the 2 heavy bags and carried them around the station to the other tracks. He looked up at the tracks, but could not see the train. Coming back, he walked through the bar room, where people waiting for the train were drinking. He drank an anise at the bar and looked at the people. They were all waiting reasonably for the train. He went out through the bead curtain. She was sitting at the table and smiled at him. Do you feel better? He asked. I feel fine, she said. There's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine. The end. Hills Like White Elephants was initially published in 1927 in the literary magazine Transition, which was a very modernist publication, and this is a very modernist work. After World War I, the entire world went through this kind of break with everything that happened before World War I. Writers kind of went through this deconstructionist vibe where sometimes they didn't even use the words to mean what, like the dictionary definition. It was just kind of like vibes and the mouth sound of these words. It's very much about breaking with the traditions of the past and the kind of like formulaic, like we talk about, you know, like, oh, the Gothic novel. These are the elements that you have to have a Gothic novel. But literary modernism has a very, very big emphasis on personal analysis and personal, development and growth and what you personally can get out of a work. Literary modernism as a movement reminds me a lot of the trading card game Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, and I promise this is relevant, just stick with me for a second. I'm going to talk about Hearthstone because I've been playing Battlegrounds a lot, but in these trading card games, the developers make hundreds and hundreds of cards, and from these hundreds of cards, you have to pick and choose which ones to include in your deck for play. And you want to pick cards that will allow you to kind of come from behind because you never know when you're going to pull a particular card. There are certain cards which they call win more cards, where if you're already ahead, it will help you win more. But that doesn't really do anything. In these games, winning is binary. Like, either you win or you lose. You don't win by, 5 or 20 or blah. It's just you win or you lose. So win more cards are kind of devalued. So literary modernism is very much like a Hearthstone win more card, in that if you are already kind of into literary criticism and analysis, literary modernism probably appeals to you. It appeals to me a whole lot because there's just all these really intricate little moving parts, and there's these little watchwords here and there, like, oh, the bead curtain, and it's kind of like, you know, a rosary, but it's not a rosary. It means nothing because it's actually an ad for liquor. It's this kind of like iconoclastic movement. Every single little detail means something, but if you're not bought into that kind of like, into that mindset, you're just sitting there. It's like, there's this couple having this like down low snarky fight at a train station. Like, okay. And in that vein, this particular story has been studied over and over again because it is so ambiguous in so many ways, and yet he uses so many little, like the beads, it means something very specific. It's meant to conjure an image, but at the same time, a lot of the broader strokes about what actually happens is left kind of up in the air. You can infer between the lines exactly what the operation to let the air in is. Thank you, Jonah Hill. But he never explicitly says it, and we are never really told whether the woman like what her choice is, if she decides to go through with the abortion or not. And that leads to the other unspoken choice to be made here, whether they break up or not. Honestly, I hope they do. They're not good for each other. But in that kind of modernism bubble, I even hesitated in presenting this story because my narrative performance can inform your understanding and your interpretation of the story. Though, I mean, by doing literary analysis and this like little conversation part at the end, I kind of always do that. So I tried to kind of like walk the line between making one or the other of them very sympathetic. With him in particular, the way you read his dialogue really colors his character. When he says, it's really an awfully simple operation, Jig. Like, he could be trying to reassure her. It's not so bad. Like, I've heard from other people. Other people have done it. It's not so bad, you know? I want to have your abortion. Or he could be saying, it's really an awfully simple operation, Jig. It's not really an operation at all. He kind of represents pragmatism in general, but pragmatism can be either compassionate or it can be, you know, forceful and somewhat brutal. And it's funny because one thing that I've found about modernism in general is that very frequently the stories will happen in a kind of liminal space like this, where they're at this train station, and the train station is between these two railways. So the train could be going either way. It could be going toward, you know, having a baby, or it could be going toward the, you know. Thank you, Jonah Hill. Liminal space is kind of the in-between space where you're just kind of unsettled and not at home. Like, a train station is very much a liminal space because you just go to the train station, wait for your train, and leave. Like, you're not staying there. Hotels, hallways in general are very good liminal spaces. Modernism in general tends to explore those liminal spaces, and we'll see some more of that next week. And yes, that is foreshadowing, and you should subscribe to see which modernist piece of literature we're reading next week. I'm very subtle. But in that kind of modernist mode, we're in this liminal space. They're both very uncomfortable. Everything is uncomfortable. The liquor tastes like licorice, and it's awful. And at the end of the story, and I can't wait to argue with y'all about this in the comments, there are a bunch of different ways that this could turn out. Like, either they could take this train and have the baby and split up, or have the baby and stay together, or they could take this train, have the abortion and stay together, have the abortion and split up. And we have no sense of conclusion, really, to this story. It's just, the train is coming, you have to make this choice. You have to make both of these choices. And that's really what the story is about. It's not about the concrete smusmortion or not smusmortion choice. It's about just choices in general, and how in making one choice you necessarily have to let the other one get away from you. That's where this whole back and forth, like, oh, well, we could be happy. No, we couldn't. Oh, well, no, yeah, we can have everything. We can be happy. And she's like, no, we couldn't. We can't. And it's this really interesting turning point, because up till then, she has been very kind of dreamy. She's talking about, oh, the hills look like elephants, and I would like to try this liquor, and oh, it tastes like licorice, but it's just not quite what you waited for. Like, she's just kind of dreamy almost. And he's very pragmatic for most of it, and he's kind of like insistent, like, hey, you gotta make a decision. And then at this point we see this kind of almost turning where he's like, oh, we can have everything, and she's like, no, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You have to make a choice. And it's interesting because not only is she making the choice, but we're making the choice in how we choose to interpret the work as well, right? Like, you can't just sit there and say, well, oh yeah, she's choosing to both keep the baby and have an abortion. You as the reader also have to make that choice. I'm telling you, it's a win more card, y'all. It's a win more card. So I hope you enjoyed this story about...
You should get a Shmushmorsman at the Shmushmorsman Clinic.
Thank you, Jonah Hill. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up down below so that I know that you are into modernist literature just like me, and we'll read a whole lot more modernist literature. That's a lie. There's not very much of it in the public domain just yet. We'll wait a couple years. But while you're down there, you might want to subscribe so you don't miss next week's work of classic literature. Hope to see you then.